All right, we'll get started. It's 5:30. Welcome to week 9. We're at the final kind of sprint to the end, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. Insert motivational line here. I don't care. But week 9. What are we doing? So basically, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be continuing on from our last week's assignments. You know, last week we built our guest books. I apologize if I haven't finished grading yours yet. I got, I think, like 3/4 of the grading done. I had a really crazy last couple days, so I have not been able to finish those. I'll have those done like ASAP, preferably like tonight will be my goal, but if not by tomorrow. Yes.
Attendance still doesn't work.
God, did they change the? All right. Stand by. They must. Something must have changed in our IP range or something. That's funny. Alright, well, we'll go with good old-fashioned hippo, all lowercase letters. You know what? Actually, I'm just not going to have it. We'll just do honor system this time. I can look up IPs if I really feel like it, but... Alright, so there you go. You guys should be able to register that. Make sure you do that. Where was I? Yeah, so if I haven't finished grading your guest book assignment, I'll get to that as soon as possible. Overall, though, the ones that I've gone through went really well. Again, it seems to be pretty standard that when we kind of go through it as a class, things do pretty well. You guys are able to follow along and modify them for your own. So I was happy to see that. So this week we're only going to have, like, what do we got? Like 25 slides of new stuff. And then we'll go through another demo today. So my guess is today is probably going to be another kind of longer class period. Feel free if you feel like it's been going on a while to like raise your hand and ask for a break. That'd be fine. I probably won't notice, but like feel free to ask one if you want. It'll probably be similar, if maybe a little shorter than last week, but you know, longer than the first half of the semesters have been. Before we jump into the assignment, I think it just would be beneficial to look at assignment 9 just to kind of know what it is we're going to be looking for. So the main thing is that it's the similar guest book to what we had before, but with a few key differences. So one, you might notice up in the header, we no longer have update a comment and leave a comment in our header bar. Instead, we just have home and leave a comment. And that's because update and delete have been turned into links or buttons within each entry in our guest book. So if I go ahead and want to update this comment, rather than having to go look up what the comment ID is or something to that effect, all I need to do is hit update comment on that particular one. It automatically has the original entry, and then I can change it and hit submit without having to type in the guestbook ID. It just knows. If I go back to the home page, it changes. And if I go through and, well, there's a lot of junk entries here. But if I go through and just hit delete, rather than having to type in the ID number, it just deletes it. Like, it's gone, 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 lots of junk records. Alright, well now there's no records. That was poor choice because the last thing that we need to show needs to have some records. So stand by as I put some random gibberish. Da ba ba. Doop, doop. Sure. Is that enough? Yeah. Alright, the other key difference is we have this sorting functionality, which basically allows us to sort the records, and of course, since I did gibberish and they all had the same first and last name, this is kind of a moot point. So let me put in Zach Smith, Zach Zachary. It's a cool name. Whatever. If I sort by first name, sort by last name, why is it? Oh, because it's in alphabetical order. So if we go, I'm sure Zach is at the very bottom here. Yep, there's Zach Zachary. And if I go make a new guy, Albert. And if I say sort by first name, we got Albert on top. So if I sort by first name, I get Albert. Let me put in, actually, and if I have, say, Bob, whatever. You guys have used sorting buttons before. You can kind of get the gist of what I'm trying to show you. If you sort by first name, by last name, whatever you give it is, or by date posted. It sorts all the comments in your guest book by that. So that's another new part. So the new update, the new delete, the new sort by, and the last thing is the page numbers, having it automatically split your guest book into pages. So that's all that's different. I mean, there's a little bit more to it than that, but that's all we're doing is we're taking the guest book that you built last week and we're making it, well, slightly a lot better than what you had last week. So how do we do all this? So we have a couple new topics to go over, and then we'll go through another demo of how we're going to be able to accomplish this. Oh, I should also mention on Canvas, oops, did it log me out? That's nice of it. I do have a zip folder of the last week's in class, the one that we did together, if you need to look at for reference. So again, don't go changing if I haven't graded your assignment, don't go changing it. I see the timestamps and all that. But like if you needed to, like before, we're going forward with assignment 9, if your original guest book has some issues with it, feel free to look at the in-class source code from last week to make sure that everything's working right. And again, you can always rewatch the video from last week as well, because we walked through it all. Because in order to do assignment 9, you need to have assignment 8 done and complete anyways. Alright, so some helpful PHP MySQL functions. So some useful tools that we use to kind of interact between the two. We have MySQLi_close. This one basically is used to, as it kind of is in the name, closes the MySQLi database connection. It's useful, it's very important in production systems. The idea being that you don't want to open up a connection to your database any longer than you have to. So once you've opened it, you've kind of exposed it, so people like me, the bad guys, we can come in and go do things that we're not supposed to. So the idea is that whenever your script is done running, you should always be using the MySQLi close function to disconnect that connection between your PHP code and the MySQL database. It improves efficiency, helps pages load faster. That all being said, be careful with it, because if you accidentally put it too early, like let's say you close the database but then you try and use the database later, it won't work and you won't know what's wrong with it. I would say feel free to use it if you want to try and practice being a little better, whatever, but it's not going to be a requirement for anything. Some of the book scripts we're going to be using do use it, so that's why I just want to make sure you understand what that code is doing. So when you are using a book script that uses MySQLi close, you can know and say, oh, it's closing the connection to the database. Any questions on MySQLi close? Cool. So a question that I got a few times for last week. So if we go take a look at our assignment 8 guest book, let's go look at it. We'll do our in-class one, which, oh joy, oh lovely. Someone was running SQL map. Not important. Lots of junk. I'll clear that out later. But somewhere people would ask, like, well, okay, it seems to break whenever I put in, like, let's see, hippos, that's not right, hippos, apple, I don't know. But if I have a special character in there, it would cause it to break. Like, it would give an error message saying it broke, it wouldn't do anything. And then also, like, I gave you the slight warning about how you want to be careful about if someone were to put, like, JavaScript in here. Basically, what that would mean. Did that work? Oh, I might have broke it again. I think I broke it, yeah. Regardless, special characters it doesn't like. It can cause breaking things. It can cause having, like, JavaScript execution to happen on your site. Not fun. So, two different functions we use in PHP to help mitigate this is the trim function and the MySQLi escape function. So the first one is the trim function. What this does is this removes any excess spaces at the beginning or at the end of text fields. So if you've got like a text box that you're asking a person to type in their name or something, and they have a bunch of spaces at the beginning or at the end, the trim function will clear all those off. So that's common when you see like login scripts, like if you paste in your username and you accidentally paste in a space, it'll still let you log in because it's trimming off that excess space. Yeah, so again, it helps things run more efficiently. It's generally not used by itself. It's usually used in pair with this really ugly named function called MySQLi underscore real underscore escape underscore string. What that one does is it basically it sanitizes data a little bit. What it does is it ensures that the data that's going to your database is clean. It doesn't have any malicious stuff in it. It's all properly encoded. It'll take any special characters and it'll encode them in such a way that they won't cause problems later. Let's see. So what is normally used, what do I got here? The most common ways of it happening is, let's say you have a post variable. We're used to like having $post L name. Oh, maybe that should say F name. Whoops. Regardless, we're used to, if we look at like our previous code, we would set $F name equal straight to the $post F name. We would just set those, we'd set that local variable, and we'll be going through this in the demo too, so if you're a little lost, don't worry about it. But to make it a more secured entry, because we don't actually trust our users when they're inputting stuff into forms, we don't trust them not to put in stupid stuff or malicious stuff or any sorts of nonsense. What you do is you trim the post variable by putting trim the post variable inside parentheses, and then you take that entire value and put it inside the MySQLi real escape string function, which requires two attributes. The second attribute is whatever you're cleaning up, so the posted value that the user put in, and then also the database connection value. Basically, you need to tell it, this function is used to make sure that it won't mess up anything in your database, so you need to tell it your database connection so it can look up and make sure that the string that you're putting in won't mess up your certain type of database. It's an overly complicated way of saying that whenever you're taking values from a form, rather than just saying fname equals post fname, do something like this every time. It's a little extra copy paste, but it works much better and it'll make your site much more secure and protected against Viagra spam, basically. It's the characters that it'll affect in case you're kind of interested about that. So new line, special characters, single quotation marks, double quotation marks, null, anything that would cause issues in a string, it does the equivalent of in PHP of escaping it. So remember how we would add the backslash to things? It does the database equivalent of that. So it'll basically escape all the special characters so that way it can store the information in there with no issue. Any questions on trim or MySQLi real escape string? Cool. Num rows, it's used to count the number of rows retrieved by a query. This is helpful if you have if-else statements and you're trying to do logic based off how many rows are in a database. So again, it's pretty straightforward. You do the normal where you have your query variable and then you have your results variable. And then you just say MySQLi num rows results, and that'll basically count the number of returned results. Pretty straightforward. Any questions? So all these things I'm showing you are kind of random and seem just kind of out of nowhere. The reason why I'm going through these and kind of going through them kind of quickly is that the demo part, we're going to be pulling out a couple textbook book scripts. Or that was redundant. Book scripts is what I always refer to them as. And we know all the stuff. We know all the code that's in them, but I don't force you guys to reinvent the wheel. I let you kind of borrow a little bit of their code to like save you some time. But they use a couple of functions that we haven't used before. So that's why I do a quick overview of these ones. So that way when we go through the demo, you know you can understand all the code that you're using. You're not just copying and pasting blindly. Base name. So I've alluded to this one a couple times. This is used to echo out the current page or file name. This is great for your form actions. So remember how we ran into the issue last week where we kept forgetting to change our form action in our like update, new comment, and delete a comment forms? Well, if you do something like this where you echo out base name, parentheses, underscore, underscore, file, all capital letters, underscore, underscore, parentheses, weird syntax, I know, but that'll always end up being whatever the current file name is. So what's nice is if you do that, you don't ever have to worry about changing your form action. It'll always just send it to itself. Any questions on base name? Cool. Other PHP and MySQL stuff. So okay, we've last week was our first time tying together MySQL and PHP together. But now you have the skills to make more advanced dynamic web applications. We're going to be doing stuff like editing existing records, making things sticky, and performing validation. We've been doing stuff like that before, like with our forms, but now we're going to be doing it with with a database focus, like where it's this dynamic, where it's a fully functional web application. There's a whole bunch more you can do with PHP and MySQL together. Some of the things that I showed you with assignment 9, and what we're going to be learning about is using get to build pages, pagination, and sorting. So those are the three new concepts that we're going to go over in the demo. And plot twist, those are the three new concepts that you need to do for your assignment 9. The good news, validation works the same. So from assignment 4 and 5, validation is basically the same as, that's sticky, isn't it? Oops, that screenshot is wrong, but validation, the idea of checking to see if an entry is blank, is not equal to null. Very similar to what we did in assignment 4 and 5. That shouldn't change. You gotta ignore this screenshot. But like validation is very similar to what you guys did for assignment 4 and 5. A lot of you guys attempted to do the extra credit, which was to make things validated and sticky. And you guys did a good job on that. I'd say most people got most of the extra credit points on that. Couple-ish people had issues where it would display the error messages like it was supposed to, like you forgot to enter your first name, but it would still enter the record into the database anyways. So the step that was forgotten there was, so the same logic where you would, let's see if I'm going to pull up an example here. Do I have an easy to grab example? So this is our in-class from last week. So we didn't have any validation or sticky on this one, so I'm just going to kind of more talk from a high-level perspective. But let's say you guys have done code where you would check to say if $, f name is not equal to null. Then do the stuff type of thing. Like, that's not new to you guys. Like, this kind of syntax. Or if you wanted to validate everything in your form, you would do a whole string of them. And then you'd kind of do, and L name. You don't have to type this along, too. This is going to just kind of be a one-off thing. L name is not equal to null, or something to that effect. Stringing along all those conditionals to check to see if everything in your form is filled out. Well, if you have it like sitting up here or somewhere else or kind of separate, just kind of in its own bubble, like kind of copy and pasting from your previous assignments, the issue is the actual code that puts it into the database, the query and the result lines, this MySQL query, if it's not inside that particular condition, what's the only requirement for this line to run? The only requirement is that the form was posted at least once. We don't care. We didn't specify what was in it or anything to that effect, because I think that was the main issue, is where some of you would have the right code but in the wrong spot. So if you wanted to do something like have validation, you would move that to say like put it right here and take all the stuff that would go like that would execute code and put it into your database, and put that inside the condition with like the validation. So that way, the logic flow would be, if the form was submitted, great, set all these local variables. If everything was filled out, then set the query, then execute the query, then give the confirmation message. If it's not completely filled out, echo out your pretty error message or something else. Does that make sense for those of you who had that issue? Still got a question?
No, well, I'll talk to you after class
Sure.
because I had a comment about that. I'll just talk to you about it.
Okay, yeah, we'll touch base. All right. Yeah, so there are some new stuff, plot twists, that can get kind of gnarly. So I did upload chapters 9 and 10 from the textbook as, again, an optional reading if you want like an additional run through of the content and stuff, because the next kind of stuff can be kind of this week's content. Those 3 new things that we're doing: using get to build dynamic pages, to pagination, and then sorting, can get kind of gnarly. So if you want more examples, you can get more of them in chapters 9 and 10 of the textbook. So I uploaded those for optional reading if you'd like. All right, so what do I mean by using get to build dynamic pages? Well, we already know what get data is, right? I mean, it's kind of spoiled here, but where does get data live? Where is this ID value 38 coming from? URL. So unlike post data where it just sends it when you submit the form, remember get data is the one where it puts it up in the URL. Well, I already kind of showed, at least at one point, using Google as an example, google.com, where they have the question mark Q. That's what their get data value is, and then that stands for query, and then that basically equates to whatever your search is. So they have a lot of junk here. So if you change that variable inside the URL, I'm not actually clicking anything inside the web application, but because I changed the URL, I changed what the page is doing by manipulating this get data. So what can we do with that? Well, let's see. One thing, so this is an example of code, and again, we'll go through the demo here, but if we go look at assignment 9 here, there's a couple times where you'll see get data being used. Here, I'll broadcast my screen if people would like that. Less people are on eBay this time. Go figure. Confirm as always. You guys can minimize me and get me out of the way, right?
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So there's a couple spots where get data is used here. The first one being when I hit update. Well, actually, let's just do delete real quick. So when I hit delete, watch that URL and see what happens. It popped up with some get data. What's the get variable up here that we see? Right. We see delete ID 1722. And plot twist, that was the ID number of the thing I deleted. If I delete this one, what do you think is going to pop up there in the URL when I click delete comment when I delete this one? Exactly. It's going to go ahead and it's going to delete that one. Now, if I just go ahead and manually type this another number in there, like 1724, same thing. It'll delete that record. That's one area where we're using get values to do stuff with our website. Another spot is, say, update a comment. If I go ahead and click update a comment, you'll notice I don't ask for their ID value of that comment, because where is that ID value being stored? In the get data up there in the URL bar. So that's what's nice is the user doesn't have to type in that that ID number anymore. It can just pull it from up here in the URL. Guestbook ID equals 1725. If I go click another one, 1728. Sorting also uses it, but we'll go through that one. We'll go through that when we're actually doing sorting. But just kind of, again, showing from just a high level what we're going to try and accomplish to do is we're going to be trying to set this get data in the URL, and then pull it to do that more dynamic stuff. Pretty sure this is just kind of like a summary of what I just said. Let's see. So you go. Yeah, it's fine. Oh, hey, nice zoomed in shot. All right, so the one example here. Apparently, I'm going to quickly just go over what happens when I click the sorting buttons and the pagination buttons. So when I hit page 2, we see a whole bunch of get data here. We see S equals 5 and P equals 2 and sort equals date. All right, well, what does that mean? Don't worry, we'll get to that later. The main point, again, is just to know that to do all these functionalities, we need to be setting information up in the URL bar and then pulling it from other stuff. This is just, again, to show kind of the syntax for get data up in the URL bar. It always starts with a question mark. Then it gives whatever the variable name is, the variable name equal to whatever the value is. And then if you want to string multiple variables in your get data, you need to use the and symbol to separate them out. So it always starts with a question mark, but then switches to and all the way down. So in this case, how many get variables are in the circled box right there? How many of them are there?
3.
Heard a couple people. Anyone proud?
3.
Sorry, what did you have?
2.
2. We got 2 guests over here. Anyone else? 3. We got 3. Anyone else? Anyone proud and confident of their answer? Yeah, that's about right. So there are 3 get variables here. We have the get variable s, which is equal to 5, and the get variable p, which is equal to 28. Or sorry, 2. That's not an 8. That's an and. It's been a long couple days, folks. And a get variable called sort, which was equal to fname. So even though these were equal to numbers and this was equal to a text, that still there are 3 separate get values up there that we'll be using with the sorting script. Pagination. So you guys have used pagination while on the internet, whether or not you know it or not. The most easy example is googles.com at the very bottom, where it takes you the total number of the total number of results of your search query and then puts it into a bunch of pages. So if I go ahead and click page 2, okay, in addition to a whole lot of garbage up there, in theory, somewhere around here should be something like page 2. They do it slightly differently, but same concept. They do it, let's see here. Yeah, how they do it is they say, like, start at the 10th entry or something to that effect, but besides the point. Let's see. Pagination's nice because page numbers are nice. You know, our current guest book is, 1 page with every comment on it, which can get kind of messy. After this week, we're going to be able to add page numbers, so that way it'll automatically break it into, say, chunks of 5, and then do page numbers for the rest of them. This can get rather complicated, as some of you can kind of guess. So this is going to be one of those things where we're going to leverage code from smarter people, and we're going to borrow some code from the textbook. How this kind of will work is, so again, we'll go through it as a demo together. We'll go read through the book code line by line, and we'll kind of, as a class, prove we understand what it's trying to do, and then even if we wouldn't have been able to write it on our own by ourselves, and then once you kind of know what it's doing, how it's doing it, then you're able to kind of copy and paste it and give a citation and use it in your code for your assignment. So what's nice is that a good chunk of this week's assignment, you're going to be leveraging book code to kind of bring your guest book up to a whole other kind of level of complexity. And that's because I don't want to make you guys spend like a solid week on just writing your own pagination script when you wouldn't do that in the real life. There's already tens of thousands of better ones out there. All right. Let's see. Is that what I want to start with? Yeah. Okay. We're going to start with pagination. I'm going to divert from PowerPoint just for a second. So on Canvas, under week 9 or module 9, I have 2 PHP scripts here. One called pagination.php and one called sorting.php. We're going to open up pagination.php and we're going to take a look at it together. So I'm going to copy all this. The PowerPoint, I think the PowerPoint's got screenshots. Yeah, so there's a nice little breakdown, but I think we're gonna go through together a little bit more detailed. So I'm gonna copy that and paste that. Save it as pagination or whatever. .php. We're not actually implementing it into our database yet, or into our guest book. All we're doing is just going through and understanding what the code is doing. Because at this point, despite it being a whole mess here, you technically know everything that's happening in this code. You know all the skills. You could, in theory, have written this on your own. It would have taken you about a month and a half, but you could have done it. So, what is the code doing? I'm just going to sit here just for the visual for a second, then we'll dive into the code with the color coding. The main thing to see is that it's made up of two parts. Part 1, called pagination setup start, and then part 2, pagination previous and next button / links. If we go look at on my guest book here, the two parts are as follows. One, the first part is just doing calculations. It's basically just figuring out how many pages should go where, what are the page number. It's doing all the logic and calculation. And then that second part of the code is just to make these buttons at the bottom. The page 1, page 2, the previous and next buttons. So let's go take a look at them. Alright. I think that's got... Okay. So this is the first part. And again, there's comments there, so, you know, you can kind of use those as a reference too. But we're going to go through together and try and, you know, participate a little bit with this one to prove to me that you guys understand what's going on. So when you just copy and paste this, I know you actually know how to use it and can change it for when we get to more complicated stuff later. So one, we're creating a variable called display equals 5. What does that mean? Well, this one kind of just tells you that's the number of records to show per page. This is something you can change. If I change this to 2, it'll only show 2 records per page or something to that effect. Alright, well that was easy. I've set variables before. Okay. And then it gets crazy. So, this line of code. Let's just copy this and let's just break this out by itself. Oop. Oh. To get my fancy color coding, I need that. Alright. So let's break this apart. So we've got an if statement. We've done those before, right? And then we've got a set of a condition, and inside we've got 2 conditions followed with an and symbol with 2 and symbols in the middle. What does the double ampersand symbol mean? And. Yeah. Basically we're saying if this and this. Alright, so let's take a look at what this first part. So we're saying this and this. Oops. Alright. So, this first part. Is set get p. Now that was almost English. Does anyone kind of have a guess as to what this line is going to do? Well, let's break it apart. What does is set to? We've used that one before. Yeah, it's checking to see if the value is set to something, just is not null. We used it with some of our validation code. We checked to see if something is set. All right, that was easy enough. Get p. Well, you might notice the syntax for this one is pretty similar to post. You know, when we would say post fname, something like that. It's pretty similar syntax, except that it says get instead of post. Well, kind of a, you know, let's see. No, that's not what I want. So if we had something like this, the second line, we know that $post fname is going to pull the variable fname from what? Where is it pulling that information from? So if we go look at our what do I want? Like new comment here. So like this is our code to insert a comment into our guest book. Right here we set a bunch of local variables and we set them to post fname, post lname, post comment. Where were these coming from? Where does a post value come from? We go back to week 8. So when I fill this, so where is it pulling post fname, lname, and comment from? They come from, is it just the, I don't know, PHP magically just makes them up, it calculates it based off, I don't know, something random. Where does it get the value for fname, lname, and comment? Not a trick question. From the form that we spent like several weeks on, 4 or 5, and then last week, posted values generally always come from a form. The user enters them in. So when someone puts in something for first in this form here, this is what pulls that from that form, the post value. Does everyone remember that? The silence kind of concerns me. You all good with that? So, using that same logic, that the post value pulls it from the form, what do we think get something will be? Where do you think it's going to pull that value from? Anyone confident in their answer? URL, thank you. Post pulls it from the form, get pulls it from the URL. So if there was some get data up here, so like, yeah, let's say this is the URL that we're looking at in this little hypothetical. I'm just going to delete out a lot of this. And this is what we're trying to find. We're trying to find what $get p equals. What do you think that's going to equal if, like, say, this was the get data in that URL? 2. Yeah. It's not a trick question or anything. $get just means that we're going up to the URL and we're looking for this value. So in this case, we'd go up to the URL and we'd find number 2. All right. So back to the actual code here. So what is this whole first line doing? What is set get p? What is that doing in plain English? And again, this will be kind of the thing where if I decide whether or not we go through the demo together as a class, or I kind of send you to the wolves, is how well we participate together. So let's try that one once again. So what do we think is set get p does in plain English?
Checks the URL if p is set.
Yeah, it basically it goes to the URL get, looks at the value for p, and says, hey, is there anything? Is there any value for p up in the URL? Because there won't always be something up there. If this weren't there, if I just got rid of that, well now get p doesn't equal anything. And we don't want to accidentally use a variable that doesn't exist in our logic later. So we're saying, hey, first go check the URL for the variable for the p value. If that is there, so if p has a value, and that value is numeric, which is basically just a fancy way of checking to make sure it's a number and that people aren't sneaking in other stuff that shouldn't be there. If both those are true, set a local variable called pages to what? What is this going to be again? The p value from the URL. So all this first part is doing is checking the URL for a value of p. If that value exists at all, and that value is a number, then set a variable called pages to that URL value p. Have I lost anyone yet? Any questions on that part so far? Okay, moving on. So it's saying if there's a p value, great. Set the variable pages to that value and then move on. If there isn't, so if there isn't a p value in the URL, or it's not a number, or if there's basically if it can't find a proper p value up there, run this whole second bit of code. So what does line 15 look like? What we kind of can recognize that just by reading it, but what does that remind you of? Yeah, it's a MySQL command. Can anyone translate into plain English what this query is going to try and do? Select count guestbook ID from guestbook. Sorry, I just threw something at you, but go ahead.
So count the amount of guestbook IDs just from the guestbook database.
Correct. So remember we talked about the count function? So this is going to return in plain English, it's going to return back the number of entries in our guestbook. Well, why would we want to know the total number of entries in our guestbook? Yeah. Basically, if we want to put, 5 entries on each page or something, we need to know how many total entries we have in order to figure out how many pages we need. So, and that also is kind of the sneaky way to figure that out is we're currently trying to figure out how many pages there are. All right, so if we don't know, so like if the URL doesn't have anything set, we go through, count the number of records in the database, execute that query, throw that query into, or throw those results into an array. Again, this is all the same stuff we did last week. And then we say records equals row P0. Well, it's kind of a weird way of doing it, but what they're doing is they're just pulling back the output from this query. Kind of similar to when we would pull back on our index page all the various entries in our database. What they're doing is just pulling back the total number of records in their database. From there, they do some math. We won't go into the actual math, but basically they figure out how many pages they need based off how many records you want per page and all that fun jazz. And they end up setting this variable pages. So pages is going to be equal to the total number of pages there are, straightforward, and it's either going to be set from the URL using the pget value or mathematically based off an SQL query in your database. So does anyone have any questions on the determine how many pages there are section? We good? Okay. The second one's a little tinier. It's also got some similar stuff before. So can anyone tell me what this first line in plain English is going to do? Don't make me actually start having to call on people.
It's checking the S variable instead of P.
Correct. Does anyone, so a little bit more specific. So someone who I haven't heard from today, like go through and just in plain English, what is this line doing? Like, so what is this is set doing? What is get S? What is this? What's that? What's that? Someone, what you got?
Like making sure S has a value and it's a number.
Perfect. It's making sure that S up in the URL exists and is a number. If it is, set this variable called start to that value. If not, just default start equals 0. So at this point, how many variables have we well, that's a dumb question. At this point, we've defined 3 main variables. We've defined display, we've figured out how to define pages, and we've defined start. All right, we're getting there. And that's the end of the logic. Okay, you might be saying, well, that's great. Moving on. What's the second part? So the second part is what actually makes those HTML links here. So the previous button, the page 1, page 2. If I go leave a bunch more gibberish. Oh, let's open for 3 pages. There we go. So like what makes these nice little previous and next buttons? Well, the first thing to notice is that these are just regular they're just regular links, they're HTML links. But if you look in the bottom left-hand corner, you'll notice something a little strange when I go and hover over each one. So let's say, for me to click on page 2, what do we see there? Am I going to a completely different page? Am I leaving index.php? No. I'm staying on the same page, but I have some get value up here. I have a couple variables up here. I have a get value for S, P, and we'll ignore sort for now. We don't need that right now. Does anyone recognize where S and P? Where did we just talk about those? In the pagination script. So what it's doing is saying, hey, well, actually, let's ask this. So P equals 3. What does that mean? What does that mean from what we've talked about, what we've looked in the code? What does P equals 3 in the get data mean? What was that? Yes. Well, let's take a look. So we're currently actually on page 2. You're on the right track though. But so if I'm on page 2, why does it say P equals 3? Exactly. It stands for the total number of pages. We go back over here. Pages was just equal to the total number of pages there are. And then what does S stand for? That one's a little trickier. At this point, basically all you guys know is that it becomes a variable called start. Well, what does start do? Well, let's read the nice little comment here. It determines where in the database to start returning results. Okay, that kind of makes sense. Well, we'll go into the actual query part of this in a second. Let's see, do I have that? Well, the part, let's see, how do I want to word this? If we go look at let's go look at our database just in phpMyAdmin. Oh crap! Which one was it? Oh, guess. Right? Is that right? Yeah, it looks right. It's a lot of fun gibberish. So let's think about comparing. So this is pretty similar. If we go back to our home page here. Wait, is this the same one? No, what was it called? Week 6? No, it's not right. Sign 8? I really should go clear up my old ones. No. S8? Oh, I think it was this one. There we go. Alright, so you'll notice that this kind of matches. Now, again, there's a lot of junk here, but you can kind of see the ID numbers just to see that it's the same thing here. So this is matching what's displayed here on the index page. And that was because we had the SQL query was just all it was. Let's see if I can make this. Was we said select all from the guest book. That's literally all we told it to do. Select all from the guest book, and this is what it gave us. Obtain. And it gave us all the values in our guest book. Well, you'll notice on this one, am I getting all of the entries from our guest book? No. On this page, I'm only getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So kind of walk through the logic with me. What could I do to this query to make it so I only get 5 of my records to show up? Think back to our kind of 2 weeks of MySQL. What's some way that I can modify this query to make it so we only get 5 entries returned? Perfect. Thank you very much. The limit function. So, if you guys remember that basically allowed us to say only return back a certain amount of values. So if I say limit 5, what it's going to do is only give me the first 5 values in my database. If I go back to here, that would have been the equivalent. If I would have changed my query in this part in last week's guest book to limit 5, it would only pull back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This stuff. None of the rest of the stuff would have been pulled back. Okay, that's almost on the right page. I kind of see how that's going. Does anyone remember the second attribute with the limit clause? The one that I said kind of was a little funky, but was going to be important later. Spoiler alert, it's kind of important now. So does anyone remember, you could give this limit a second number, and it did something. Does anyone remember? That's fair. I didn't. Oh, what you got?
Is it 6? After,
Say it once again.
after the fifth one, is it you put 6? I think.
So let's say I put 6 here. So if we're looking down, so currently the first records in my database is 14, 15, 16, 20, and 21. What happens? I'll do 2 for an example here, but let's see what would happen if I put in 2 for that. I get 22 and 23. And you might be saying, oh, okay, that was not what I was expecting. Well, kind of look over here. Look at the 2 values we've got. We've got a 5 and we've got a 2. And these are the numbers that we're working with. We got 14, 15, 16, 20, 21. And then we get 22. So kind of looking at,
I think we switched them.
oh, you want to switch them? All right. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yes. So when you have the second attribute for the limit clause, the actual total number of records it's limiting is pushed to the second part of the attribute. So when we originally had limit 5, if we want to have limit with a second number, if we still want to have 5 records, that's got to be the second number because it's got to be flipped because that's just how they chose to do the syntax. All right, well, let me try that then. I'll flip it. So I say limit to 5. Does anyone want to take a guess as to what? I'll give you a hint that we're going to get 5 entries back, but does anyone have a guess as to what those 5 entries will be?
14.
Starting at 16.
Okay, we got one person saying 14, 15, 16, 20, 21. What do you think?
I said, I think starting at 16.
Starting at 16. Any other guesses? All right, let's try it. Heyo, congrats. It's starting at 16. what it's doing, so again, so if we're getting 16, 20, 21, 22, 23, the first value basically tells it where to start in your database. That's what when you add in the second clause to the limit, it basically tells you what record to begin with. Not like an ID number or anything, but literally like counting the number of records to begin with. And because databases start at 0, it's technically starting at the second value because there's a 0. This was the 0th returned record, the first record, and the second returned record. So that's why it's returning those. So if we're here. Again, another way to look at it is 2 is how many records is it going to skip before it starts returning. And then it's how many records you want to pull back. All right. I know that was kind of a little complicated sidebar here, but is anyone kind of taking a guess as where I'm going with this? So if 2 is where the entry that we want to start, and 5 is the total number of records we want to display, and remember the 3 variables we've set so far? Display, pages, and start. Can anyone take a guess of what 2 of those are probably going to be used for? Display and start. What we're going to be doing is modifying our SQL query where these will end up being something like this. And that way, when it goes through, it pulls back all of your guestbook entries, but it says, wait, I'm not pulling all of them back. I'm going to go look at the URL, figure out the record that I'm supposed to start at, and only display this many records. And that's how it'll go through and pull back just a chunk of records at a time. Again, we'll go through it together, but just like want to make sure it's, you gotta understand. I know you all can copy and paste fine. It's one thing to actually make sure you actually learn this stuff. And again, I know it's one of those where you can copy and paste on a lot of this assignment, but I feel like you guys have learned enough in this class to know that that won't get you far later in the class. The final, you're going to need to know this stuff. The final project, you're going to need to know this stuff. So that's why I'm kind of beating this over the head, a lot type of thing. Even though at the end, I know most of you are just going to watch the video and just copy and paste, just copy and paste and be done with it. You still got to know and understand what you're copying and pasting, especially if you want to just do good in the industry type of thing. I could get all soapboxy about it, but yeah, anyone can copy and paste from a technical assignment, but that won't get you a job. Being able to take complex things and being able to do cool things, that'll get you to do the job. So making sure you actually know this stuff will get you far. Rant over. I just felt like I was getting preachy, so that's why I had to throw in my reasoning for my preachiness, because I don't deny I was getting preachy. Anyways, so again, that was a prelude to what we were going to be doing. So we know what the start variable is going to be using, and we know what the display is going to be doing, and we know that pages is just the total number of pages, but we haven't actually done anything with the pages variable yet. So scrolling down to the next set of code, we've got the last thing here. I should also point out, let's see. Try not have. No. Regardless. So okay. So this is called pagination previous and next button / link start. It's not from the textbook. I typed that. I was overly redundant, so that way there was no confusion of what it does. What that one is doing is it makes these buttons. It makes the page numbers and then the previous and next buttons. So how does it do that? Well, it does a whole bunch of complicated math that I'm not going to go into. Like it has a little for loop. It does the whole thing here. The main thing to catch is, let's just try and take a look at line 53. What is line 53 doing? Let's just isolate that real quick. Oh, there's a whole lot of stuff here. So we got an echo line. Oops, that's easy enough. We know what an echo is. I'm just going to break down every concatenated line, because you guys all remember that the period is concatenating concatenating things together. So it's concatenating a lot of things. 1, 2, 3, 6 different things are getting concatenated. So what is this? What's the first line? What does this do? What is that? It's a link. It's a good old HTML A tag. It's echoing out just an A tag. A equals href equals. All right, what is this nonsense? Well, what is this nonsense? The get data. Unlike post data, where the only way to get data, or verbiage, the only way to post data is through a form. That's the only way. You can't like manipulate it or anything. It has to come from a form to get a post value. Well, get data, like here, you have control over. You can manipulate it. If I go ahead and say, let's see here. What's a good example? If I change this, oh, here's a good one. So like if I change this p equals 3 to 30, anyone take a guess as to what that p value is doing? Yeah, it's basically telling you how many of these page links we need. So what I'm getting, that wasn't a very good explanation. I didn't like that. I'm gonna try again. You can manually create A tags and links on your page that has get data pre-populated. It doesn't always have to be like something that is generated up in like the URL, or it does something to that effect. We can just have it. So like if we go look at the source code of this link right now, that link says go to the same page but with this get data. And then this one says with this data, and this one says with this data. So how we do that is we just give a regular A tag, but we then code in the get data. So we always have to start the get data with a question mark. Then we say, okay, we want to put in the S value. Then it goes through and calculates out the S value. So we already said that S was going to be equal to what variable? Start. So basically it needs to know like what record should it start with? Well, to mathematically do that, you take the start value that they've calculated out and you subtract the number of displayed records per page. Again, you don't need to know worry about the math about that. You just need to kind of understand that what it's doing is it's dynamically creating these get links. Come on. No. There we go. So like this is turning into this whole A tag right here. Then it's saying and p equals, because it's going to add on another get value, and it's just going to throw in the pages. Oh, definitely forgot another concatenation thing there. And then it's going to throw in the get value for sort. Then it's going to go through and echo out the word previous. So this one right here is actually, I'm not on a page with the previous button. There we go. So this whole code right here that we've got highlighted is making this link. It's making it's making a link that's dynamic, that has these three values. We don't know about sort yet, but it's making these three values populated in there. So that way when the person comes to that page and they hit previous, it dynamically goes to the previous page. Make all numbered pages. Again, we won't go, now that you kind of just understand in general what this is doing. Also, hint, hint, nudge, nudge. So there's a question on the final that basically asks like what this line of code is doing and like what the various things are here. So listen to what I just said. The for loop, the only thing again, it's what it's doing is it's looping through based off whatever this p value was and making all these different numbered pages. And then what each one of those again has that dynamic whatever get data programmed inside of it. So like it loops through and it says, okay, 0, 3, then we got 10, 3. Oh, that's the next page. So like it goes through each one of them and then it just keeps adding the number for each one. Sorry. It just dynamically populates whatever the get value is to make those page numbers pop up. Again, that's going to be one of those where we're just going to copy and paste it and be happy with it as long as you understand that it's looping through and creating a bunch of A tags, those little numbers. And then it's going to go through and check to see if it's not currently the last page. And if it is not the last page, make a next button. And then it goes through and makes a nice next button. And then it closes the paragraph tag. So this whole chunk right here, all that does is output, based off the rest of our logic code, these links here. What's nice about that is since these are just regular HTML links, you can style those pretty easily. A pretty common one that I'll see done, like, let's see, page number. So like something like that, like it's super easy to do something like this because they're all just regular A tags. Like you can do whatever styling you want with them with CSS and they'll turn into like nice grown up looking, page numbers. Bootstraps, I think, has Oop, maybe not. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so like the standard bootstrap page numbers, like that's also stuff that you can do using this code. All right. Any questions so far? So now I think what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to implement pagination into our guest book that we started last week. So what do I do? There's 3 steps, well, 3 main steps. Put this first part of code in, put the second part of code in, and then change your SQL query. A lot of people will sometimes forget that last step, but we'll go through that, make sure not to skip that one. So let me pull up, I'm gonna get some code ready, So hint, nudge, nudge. This would be the part where you save a copy of your, oh, also again, if I haven't graded your guest book, please, sorry, again, I really would have tried to have those all done by today. If you're going to follow along, can you save as, do a new copy? Because I don't want you to, like, while you're working now in class, break your assignment, and then when I go in tonight to grade it, I don't want to accidentally have it be broken. So, again, like, email me if things go haywire, but if you haven't graded your assignment yet, or just good practice, save a copy of what you did last week. You can use the same database, that's fine, so you can just copy and paste the folder, like what I'm going to do, but if I haven't graded your assignment yet, don't mess up the one you turned in, because no one wants that. Is that right? Oops. There we go. So I'm going to take a copy of my in-class from last week, and I'm going to bring it into week 9. So this is where we ended off with our in-class from last week. Okay, pretty straightforward. I'm going to close all this. We don't need it. And then again, I'm going to be slightly naughty and just edit everything directly on the server. Don't do that. Save local copies of your work. And just to make sure that it looks different, I'm going to pick a couple other. We're going to change the background color so that way we can tell it's a different one than before. Ooh, that's ugly. But, oh, God. Well, now let's pick a better color. That's just going to give me a headache. Wow, zoomed in is really weird for this. Someone yell out a color I should use. Cyan, I like cyan. Hey, no, those are basically the same thing. Can I just say that? Hey, we'll do that. That works for me. Okay, so on our index page, this is what we had before. We had our nice little our SQL query. We said select everything from the guest book, and then here was our while loop for that. Oh, I was also going to show, before we do the pagination, someone asked to show another example of, like, how would you go about modifying the format of your index page? So how all these kind of look. Well, it's basically anything that's inside your while loop, so all the stuff in here, that's where any formatting you want to go happens. So it can be as simple as these little tiny bars I have. You could do a bunch of dashes like that, and as you save those, whoa, I thought I picked cyan. All right then, that makes sense. Oh, I did a hashtag cyan, which for some reason becomes, oh, that's weird. I'm sure it's because, okay, I'm not gonna think about that now. But so basically, whatever you put in that in between those, that while loop becomes your formatting. So if you wanted to do something a little bit more pretty, all you need to do is change what you have here. So let's say you wanted to echo out an H1 tag, and then followed by, we'll concatenate in their first name and last name. We'll concatenate a space there too, so that way it's not just their name shoved together. And then their last name or something to that effect. And then We just want, we'll throw in our couple of line breaks here. So let's just comment out the rest of it. Well, now we just get H1 tags of each one of their first and last names. So again, someone just asked for another example. The idea is that you can do whatever formatting you want as long as it's inside your while loop. You can put in these special row variables wherever you want and format them around other HTML or other CSS as needed. Let's go back to what we had. So, what were the 3 steps I said we needed to do pagination? Yeah, first 2 are copy and paste. So, we first have to copy the logic part of it. Well, so this one, where should I paste this code? I'll give you 2 choices. Should I be pasting this towards the top of my page or towards the bottom of my page? What was that?
The top.
One person says top. Anyone want to go for bottom? All right, fair enough. Should have stuck with top. No, it doesn't matter too much. However, because the bottom part of the code needs this logic code to have already been run in order for this to work, it's safer to put this up higher up. It's all the calculating logic, so it's generally safe to put that up towards the top, so that way you don't accidentally try and call a variable that hasn't been declared yet. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it, and I'm going to paste it up here on top. Boom! Yay! All right, great. I then go in and copy the bottom part, the links. Now these technically can go anywhere in your guestbook. Some people like to put them not down at the bottom. They like to put them at the top by these sort buttons. That's fine. You can put them wherever you want as long as they're somewhere on the page where I can find them. To follow along with kind of where to go. There we go. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to put it at the bottom just because I think that's a little cleaner, but it definitely doesn't have to be. All right, who can tell me what I did wrong?
Did you bring the PHP tag?
It's not in the PHP tags. I put it in regular HTML, so I got to put it. I'm just gonna click on that. It's got to be inside it's got to be inside PHP. So there we go. Pasted it in. Couple things. The only thing at this point you should be changing for the code that we just used. If you want to change the number of records that are on each page, you change this value right here. If your database is called anything other than guestbook, you need to change that. And if your ID primary key is anything other than guestbook_ID, you have to change that. But apart from those, you really don't have to change anything. If you want to make it prettier, you can, but the functionality part of it should be fine. All right, so I copy and pasted both those parts. I'm done, right? No, what was the 3rd step? And remember the 3rd step? We basically have to, well, okay, let's try it. Let's go, I definitely haven't this will for sure work. I'm very confident. Nothing will go wrong here. I'm sure when I refresh this page, it'll only be 5 on each, oh, shit. It didn't work. Why didn't it work? Been a great couple days, folks. No. Exactly. We need to update our select statement. So right now, we still told it to select everything from the guestbook. We did all this fancy jazz up here to create all these variables, and then we didn't do anything with them. So as we talked about, what do I need to add here? Let's see if we can remember. We typed it out together, but what should I add? Limit. And then what? 2,5, right? That's what we did. No one's going to stop me. We're going to just go try this. All right, we're going to go try this. Sure. What could go wrong? Oh, yeah, it's just those. And what is going wrong? Yeah, okay. We want these to be dynamic. We spent all those time declaring those variables up above. This is when we're using them. So one of these should be start and one of these should be display. And to be honest, I always mix them up. That's why I have a little cheat sheet in front of me. Just because the limit, when you have 2 variables, they flip the order and it's stupid. But it's start, comma, display. Basically, the first one tells you, how many records to skip and which entry to start on, and then display is how many from that point, how many records you want to display. So now, if I go save and upload this, if I didn't do a fat finger there, we should be good. Alright, that looks promising. Those were the first records in my database. Hit go. Hey, this is looking pretty good. Despite a whole lot of gibberish. Oh, side note, I just figured out what that's from. That was definitely me by accident. I was showing an intern at work a tool that we use for like injection stuff, and I just needed to give it a random URL, and I think I put in this one just as a regardless, so I have only myself to blame on that one. I'll clear that all out to make it a little cleaner. But regardless, it's working. These previous buttons all work. The next buttons work. We have all the nice little pages. If I go in and add a new one, it'll be at the last page. So if I add Sam, Hippo, I don't know, Apple. Go to page 26, and there it is. On our last page, we don't have 5 records because it wasn't divisible by 5, but that's okay. And then the next button goes away because there's no reason to. Alright, and then again, if you kind of look at the URL, the get data, so currently S is equal to 0 and P is equal to 26. So 26 was equal to the total number of pages. So when I click number 2 here, is P going to change? No, it's going to be the same for each one. The only one that's going to change is the S value, basically telling it which database entry to start with. So as you'll notice, we just keep going up by 5 because that's how many records we want per page. All right, we all get that? Any questions on pagination? All right, cool. That was a third of your assignment. Yay. So I should just take a look at the assignment here. Just so we're on the same page here. That's what this part is. So pagination. So of the 3 new features you need to add in, that was pagination. So well done. All right, next part. We're gonna do. Yeah, let's do sorting. We've been doing other stuff. Let's do sorting. That's the other book script. So let's go copy and paste and dissect the book script for sorting. There we go. Hey, there's only one block of code to copy and paste. I also give up here. I knew I had the reminder somewhere. I have a nice little comment warning you to add in that limit start display thing. So if you need a reference to what your SQL query should look like, on the sorting.php I give an example. Also spoilers to what we'll be adding in later. Let's take a look here. Just going to open up a new one just so we can play around with it. All right. So this should be pretty. They did that. All right. Most of this line should be pretty straightforward, right? We just kind of went through something very similar. We know what does is set get sort mean. It's checking if something's set. What's it's checking? What type of? But where is it getting the variable sort from? The URL. So just like how with this one, we were checking just these shorthand variables P and S. This one we're checking, it's the same concept, it's just a little longer of a variable. We're checking to see, hey, is there the get value sort up in the URL? They do, I forget what the notation's called. Any people who have done more programming languages know what the question mark colon syntax is called? No one? All right, fine. That's fine, I don't remember it myself. It's a shorthand that some coding languages allow you to do. It basically allows you to do a quick version of an if-else thing. Not important. You don't need to do it. The book script does it, so we're just going to, again, just kind of copy and paste it. In a nutshell, this is the equivalent of saying, hey, check to see if sort is set in the URL. If it is, set the variable sort to the get value sort. If it's not, set it to the string date. So what this is doing is basically saying it's setting our a variable called sort, which shocker is going to be what we're sorting by. So like, are we sorting by first name, last name, email, date, whatever? And it's going to go check the URL, and if there's a value up there, set it to that. And if not, this is the default value. So you basically need to give it a value here for what to sort by if there's nothing up in the URL bar. It should be pointed out here that, let's see. Yeah, we'll get back to that in a second. So in this case, we said by default, set the sort variable to date. If there isn't anything up there, just by default date. Sort things in just chronological order. Then we get this kind of messy thing. Does anyone remember what this kind of is called or anything?
Switch cases.
Yeah, switch case thingy. Yeah, basically. Does anyone remember what it does? Most of you probably did one of these on your assignment 3 and have since forgotten about them. What they do is it's basically kind of an alternate way of doing it, like a condition, like an if-else, but checking just one variable. So what we're saying is, hey, we're going to check this variable sort, and we're going to go through a bunch of different use cases. We're going to check to see if this variable sort is equal to lname, is equal to fname, is equal to date, and if not, here's a default. All right. In theory, these should all be tabbed in like this. I think that gets a little messy, but fine, I'll give in for once. So what you're doing here is you're basically checking to see if the value up in the URL, the little shorthand value, let's see, not that one. We're going to look at the sample solution. If I hit first name, you'll notice up in the URL it adds sort equals fname up there. If I hit last name, it says sort equals lname. All right, pretty straightforward. If I hit date, it says date. Okay. What the switch statement is doing is checking to see if whatever that shorthand variable you have up there, and it's checking to see if that's what it's set to. The reason why this is important is that technically these have nothing to do with your database yet. What this is doing is just pulling whatever you have up in the URL bar, and by extension what you have in these links down here. But let's say, so we've got the 3 examples here, lname, fname, and date, and if not, here's a default. Then we're setting a variable called order by. Can anyone take a guess of what order by is going to do? Not a trick question. It's going to order by something. Looking at this, does anyone kind of recognize what lname ASC? Does anyone kind of remember what that might be for? Someone who I haven't heard from today. Appreciate the participation, but anyone I haven't heard from today?
Ascending order.
Thank you. Aha, I know what happened over there. Thank you as well. Ascending order. So, ascending order in what? When did we learn about ascending order? What was that used with? What was that? Yep. So then, like, well, let's ask it this way: was it a PHP thing or a MySQL thing?
SQL, right?
Yes.
It was an SQL thing. So what it does is it basically allows us to, when we get the records back from the database, to sort them in a certain way. Well, shocker, if we want to sort something, if this is literally sorting something, using that MySQL order by clause is going to be really helpful here. So the syntax for these here is, let's see if we go look. So again, we'll get back to where we just kind of have we'll have them in here manually. If I throw in an order by, whoa, that was fun. Delete it up. I hate the insert button. Has anyone ever actually used that and intended to? Order by, and let's say I just put in fname here. What it's going to do is, notice these are completely different records than we had before, because it's giving us the first 5 skipping the first 2 records, then giving us the next 5 records, but it's first ordering by fname. If I say fname ascending, we should get the same thing. What if I want it in reverse order? Like, what if I want it by first name but in reverse alphabetical order? What would I change ascending to? Yeah, and what was the... I don't know, that's fine. I'm not going to ask for that because I always mess it up too. But yeah, so DESC is basically asked for the reverse of that. So here we get the bottom 5 records in reverse order. So back over here, you're setting the order by variable to whatever chunk of SQL code you want run in your order clause. So it's important to have both parts here. You have whatever your column name is, and then if you want it to be ascending or descending. So like how here, if we want fname descending, we would have to change this to descending or something to that effect. Right now, all of these are just in ascending order, and we were keeping it pretty simple. When we go to implement it together in the demo, we'll add in like most recent and most old or something like that. We'll do something with descending and also in addition to ascending. But the main idea is that you've got the switch statement, which is going to go look up in the URL bar for this sort variable, and depending on what it is, it's going to set this order by variable to a chunk of SQL code. So if it's lname, set it to lname ascending, fname ascending, date ascending. And if something went wrong, if it's something up there that you don't know what it was or there isn't anything, then just pick one by default. So in this case, we just said by default, use date ascending, and then also sort by equals date. So again, that's just our default for what we chose to do. The last part here, can anyone take a guess as to what this is doing? So like if we're on this page, what this code is turning into what on this page?
HTML.
What was that? I heard that was a lot of talk. That was good, but I didn't actually understand any of it. What was that?
HTML.
HTML, right? Okay, so which HTML part?
The division.
Sort by? So what do you mean the sort by? So like, where should I move my mouse? Up, down, left, or right? Right there, exactly. These links, again, very similar to what we had before down here where we were dynamically generating HTML links for the page numbers. We're dynamically generating sort by buttons. So we just have some A tags, some hrefs, and again, they're just adding in that question mark sort equals, and then we're just throwing in, these ones aren't really dynamic, we're just saying we want a button that always makes it fname, one that makes it lname, and one that makes it date. It is very important that this is where the things that your case statement is checking against. So what I have highlighted right here is what matches here. Those are the two that link those up together. This is what goes into, like, gets executed on your database, but this is what is pairing with your links here. So if I call this last name, I need to change that up here in order for that to work. This would still stay the same because in my database it's still lname, but in order to get these buttons to actually work to make the URL, the sort or the get data up there proper, you need to make sure that those are matching. And that's actually it. That's a lie. I forgot the step that I told you everyone forgot. I forgot to change my SQL query. So again, same concept. We're doing a whole bunch of logic here. We set one variable really. We set one variable called sort temporarily, but that was just to get this variable, order by, which, shocker, is going to be used in our SQL query. So if we go look at what our SQL query is now, so we already have this new stuff, the limit start equals display. The last thing we need to throw in here is what? What do I need to throw in? Order by, and then what? Lname descending, right? Oh, we want it to be dynamic. We set those variables for a reason. We set it to the variable. And again, there's a nice little reminder up here. Change SQL query to something like select all from, well, ours would be guestbook, not users. Order by, limit, start, comma, display. That basically is one of the key steps of this, and then the rest is just copy pasting. So let's go ahead and copy and paste this. So I'm going to copy this. In theory, I could have put these in two different parts. Like, this is like the links, so in theory this could go somewhere else, but we're just going to take it all for right now. And go to our index page. I'm just going to put them up towards, I'm going to put it up towards the top. So underneath my pagination setup, but before the actual while loop where it actually puts in everything. And I paste, and I want to add in one more. I want to throw in, I'm going to add in another link here, so I'm going to change this one to date I'm going to change, instead of just saying date, I'm going to change it to newest first. And then I'm going to create another link called oldest first. So what do I need to change here? So like, what should I change? I can't have two things with the same sort value here. So what should I change one of these two, or both of them? Sure. So like, to make it easier on us, we'll just say date, like, ascending, or just so this is more for just us to know what it is. You could also just say newest or oldest or something, and actually, I'm going to make it different just because that totally was the correct thing to do. I want to make it so to make it clear what is being set where. So I'm going to change this one to actually newest, or just new, and old. So the sort method is either going to be by first name, last name, new, or old. Well, because I edited my links, I got to go and edit my switch statement. So I need to do a couple things. One, is this one going to work anymore? No, because nothing down here is set to date. So I need to change this to what? New, exactly. So basically this one's going to check to see if it's equal to new, and if it is, set it to date ascending. Nowhere in date ascending does it have the word new. That's, again, just to pair the links up to figure out which SQL code to run. And I'm going to create one more. Call this one old. And what do I need to change here? Descending. All right. I probably made way too many changes without checking, so I'm sure something's broken, but let's go take a look. Refresh. Oh, hey, it's looking pretty good. If I hit first name, all right, it's sorting by first name. If I hit last name, it's sorting by last name. I forgot to put a space here, so that's just an aesthetic thing. As long as they're two separate links, we're fine. If I hit newest first, we're back to where we started. And if I hit oldest first, we have the oldest ones. How did my page numbers go away? Weird. Not important. Let's see here. Oh, wait, I see. Out of curiosity, is that how I have it in this? I just caught a bug in my code, and I'm wondering if that's actually how I've always had it. Huh, I do. So, bug, I'm not going to harp, you're not going to lose points on this or anything to that effect, because I literally have not caught it for like 3 years. If you, in the order, go to a different page, and then click on a sort by link, because if you look in the bottom left-hand corner, oops, those links that we hard-coded in only have the sort get value. They don't have the page number values anymore. It's going to send us back to the page 1 every time when you sort by, which actually, I suppose technically wouldn't that be functional? Because if you were in on page 5 and then you clicked sort by last name, you wouldn't want to be brought to page 5 of the sorted by last name. You'd be brought back to page 1 sorted by last name. So, in conclusion, this whole last 30 seconds was pointless. It's not a bug, it's a feature. Back to the code. But regardless, at this point, sorting is now done. Sorting is working. And 2/3 of your assignment is now done. Awesome. Let's see. This class is going to go long. I apologize about that. We got one more thing. It's up to you guys. We can take like a 5-minute break if you want, or we can just rush through and try and get the last part done to get you guys out as early as I can. What are you guys kind of thinking?
Second option.
Second option, rush through. Anyone strongly in favor of the first option? Speak now. We got a couple people. All right, so we'll go full democracy on it. All right, raise your hand if you would like to take a break now for like 5-10 minutes. Okay, raise your hand if you just want to push through it and get it done. All right, raise your hand if you hate democracy and you didn't vote. It's fine. At least appreciate the honesty. Regardless, we'll go through it and then we'll get done, and then you guys can go and do what you need to do. Last thing we need to do is look at the assignment. So what we just did there was sorting. So the last thing we need to do is delete and update buttons using the get method. All right, what does that mean? Well, let's go look at the sample solution here. So that was where we have these nice buttons up here or in here within each record. And when you click on update, it brings you to a page that doesn't ask you to type in an ID number, but it just asks you to enter in your new comment. And delete basically just deletes the comment instantaneously. I don't have to do anything else with it. Well, let's do delete here. Let's do update here. That's the one I clicked. So what can anyone tell me, kind of with the theme we've been going with of like the new functionality? What do you see on this page that is interesting and is probably going to be used? The get data. So we got up here, we've got guestbook ID equals 1726. All right, and when I click on any other one, I get a different value each time. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get just these links to show up here as opposed to up here, and then we'll get these to be dynamic, so each one goes to a different spot. So back to our code. This one, there's nothing to copy. There's no book code to copy and paste. We just got to do it ourselves. First thing we can do is we can get rid of our update and delete buttons from our header, so we don't need those anymore. Those are gone. And now we're at our index page. So ignoring all the code we just added, so this is the, where am I? This was what basically was on our index page before. Where am I going to be putting that update.php and delete.php links? Where am I going to be putting those to make it so there's one for each record on our homepage? Inside the while loop, exactly. So remember, whatever's inside the while loop, that's how we get one per each entry. So we get one per each entry. So just like how we wanted to display like their comment ID each time or their timestamp each time, we also want to put in an two H tags, one for update and one for delete. So I'm just going to do again. I'm going to echo it out on the same line. I'm going to do like something like that so we can kind of see it a little better. You do it again, format it however you want. I'm just going to put in a blank H tag just for right now. So plain HTML at this point, nothing fancy. Let's see here. Should close it. Whatever. I'm just getting kind of the base up here. So let's see what I've got currently just by doing that. Syntax error. Lovely. What'd I do? Oh, probably doesn't like that I've got double quotation marks and then double quotation marks inside here. I'm going to change those to single quotation marks. Wow, that is super ugly. Let's get rid of that. Yeah, I'm going to go back to the vertical bars. I think they're cleaner. Okay, so this first one will be, so we'll say edit or update or whatever you want to call it. And then I'm going to copy and paste with another little vertical bar. We'll call this one delete. We haven't done any PHP stuff yet. We're just getting the HTML link set up, and then we'll figure out how to do it from there. Oh, God, it still looks ugly. But you get the point. So we've got each entry here has an edit update button and then a delete button. These buttons don't do anything currently, but they look cool. That's a lie, they don't look cool. They look like links. But, okay. So, using the two examples that we learned previously, what do you think I'm going to be putting in here? I'll give you a hint. It's going to start with update.php. If I just leave it like that, whenever someone clicks the update button, it's going to bring them to update.php. But that's it. What else should we add here to make this link actually dynamic? Common theme of the night. Get data. So just like how you can see up here where we had in these links we had some manual get data, we're going to add the same thing here. So what do I need to do to start putting in some get data there? What's the first thing I need to throw in? Think about what symbol do I need to put in first? Anyone want to say it loudly and clearly so I can hear it? Question mark. Perfect. All right. Then we have to give it whatever we want the get variable to be named. I generally will, again, to make sure I don't get confused later, call things like what they are. So I would probably call this guestbook ID. I could just call it ID. I could just call it like I to keep it short and clean. Like Google doesn't say query, they say just Q. But for the purposes of learning, I think it makes it a little bit clearer. So I'm going to say guestbook ID is equal to what? I can't just put in a number there. I've done that trick with you guys like a bunch of times. That hard codes it to the point where it no longer works. So what instead am I going to be putting in here?
Would it be the row, like the row guestbook ID?
Exactly. So we already have inside our while loop a place where the guestbook ID was being pulled from, was being displayed, right here. And we did that by just echoing out row guestbook ID. So we might have to, I think we'll have to concatenate things a little bit here. Let's see here. So I think we'll do, we'll break that. So all I did was just split that, so it's just two parts right now, and then I'm going to throw in the variable. Let's get rid of that. So that I think should work. Might have to check that again. There's a couple different ways you can do it with the concatenation, but the idea is that you just need to get it so you have update.php, question mark, guestbook ID equals, and then whatever the current ID number is. So let's see if this worked. So the easiest way to do it is to click the link and see where it takes you. So where should this one take me? When I click this one, it should take me to update.php, question mark, guestbook ID equals 14. Because that's the number here. This one down here should be the update.php, question mark, guestbook ID equals 20. And survey says, pretty good. That's looking pretty good up there. We have the same ID, and we're good to go. So, now that we've got that set up, oh, we can also do, we'll do delete at the end here, but okay. So now we need to go and actually edit our update.php page. So let's go to that. First things first, looking at this form, is there anything I need to change with the form part of it? Yeah, we don't ask for that anymore. So what do we do with this? We get rid of it. Gone. Alright, that step was easy. However, now if I put something in here, it's going to give me a nice big error message, because it's going to be like, yeah, what went wrong? And we can see by the outputted query here, what did go wrong. It didn't have a guestbook ID. So we scroll up to where we were setting our two values. So we had guestbook ID and comment. Where were we getting both of those values? We were getting them from the form, therefore we were getting them from the post value. Okay? Which one of those needs to change now? Guestbook ID, because guestbook ID is not being given, I really wish get values were called something different, because I use the word get as the verb too often. The guestbook ID was not received by, did not come from the form. God, that was hard. That was a mess. Where does it come from instead? The URL. We want it to pull from up here. So what do I need to change here? Exactly. We just needed to change post to get. Very easy step, very often forgotten. A lot of students will be like, oh, I don't know what went wrong. When I try and like run this, I get it's not pulling in the ID. Well, go check to make sure that you're posting all the values that you come from the form and you're getting all the values that come from the URL. All right. Technically at this point, it should work. There's one more thing we're going to add, but just to make sure that the functionality is working, let's go and try and edit this comment here, this AF one. I hit edit update. It has it up there in the URL, guestbook ID equals 14. Oh, also another common mistake. If you get to this page and it looks like this, then you messed up somewhere in your links. So go check wherever you were trying to get those links to pop up. That's another common issue I see. Well, okay, so let's go back. I'm going to edit this first one. And I'm going to type in a new thing. This is new. Hit submit. And it broke. Why didn't it work? All right, let's go take a look. Because I didn't re-upload it. Trick question. I was really confused why it didn't work. I was just going to play it off super cool and like pretend it was like a learning exercise. Yeah, I just forgot to hit update. So again, we'll try from the top. It's AF currently. We hit edit update. This is new. Still didn't like it. All right. Let's see. What did I mess up? So for some reason, it's not getting the guestbook ID. So let's go take a look at our code here. So guestbook ID. Did I spell guestbook wrong? Oh, all right. This is a good one. So keep an eye on the URL, and you guys tell me if you can figure out what went wrong. So I hit edit update, and the URL looks good, right? It says guestbook ID equals 14. Great. I hit submit, and now watch what happens with the URL. What happened? What happened? We lost all of our get data. Why is that? Well, I'll give you a hint. It's somewhere in our regular HTML form down here.
It's being sent
Oh,
to
oh yeah,
update
yeah, that
PHP.
PHP.
Exactly. We hard-coded it in, so we lost all of our get data. What was something we learned in the PowerPoint that, I don't know, may or may not be useful right around now? Like, right around now? Remember that thing where I said it would be nice where you wouldn't have to worry about forgetting what your form action was? Now's the time we're going to use that. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a PHP block here. Whoa, what did I just delete? There we go. PHP block. Now I'm going to echo out base name parentheses underscore underscore FILE, all capitals, underscore underscore close parentheses semicolon. Why is it that? God only knows. Save, re-upload. Now let's go take a look. Hit an update. This is Sparta Hippo. Hit submit. And it's still broke. All right. So let's take a look at our code here. So the way to check. So the issue we're having is with this form action, where basically that URL is already set by the point it gets here. So if we go and hit Control U of this page, we can go see that, oh hey, it's still being set to update.php. And that's because, well, the base name function just pulls just that, the base name. It just pulls the file name. It does make it dynamic for, like, if I have this on my any other form, it'll always work, but it doesn't pull the get data with it. What you need to do is you need to manually pass along that get data to it. So what we actually need to do is echo out base name, concatenate it with something else. Is that gonna work? I don't know. We might have a syntax issue, but we didn't see. What else do we need to concatenate it with? Well, let's say if this is what we're getting, stand by. So looking at the two URLs, this is what we're getting, this is what we want. What are we missing?
Guess what?
Yeah. So we need to add in some plain text first. Why do I need at least one bit of plain text first before I throw in a variable? So we need that little question mark there. If I don't have that question mark, we're going to end up with something like this, and it's really not going to know what to do with itself. So we're going to concatenate in a question mark, and then we're going to concatenate in what else? Guestbook ID. Now, some might ask, well, okay, what guestbook ID do I do? Because some might say, oh, well, we'll do the variable, the guestbook ID variable. And that would be a good idea. However, something won't work with that. Can anyone take a guess as to why this won't work? I'll give you a hint. This variable is getting set in a specific spot that doesn't always happen. So why won't this work all the time?
The form is not posted when you initially.
Right. We're only setting these variables when the form is posted. Now, given you could just you could redefine it down below. I don't know. I think that gets kind of messy. I think the easiest thing to do is just to move those variable decorations outside of the if loop, because now you're using them in more than one location. So now it doesn't. That would be my recommendation. But let's see how this works now. I don't know if I did my concatenation right, so I'm sure something will break, but let's try it. Back to the home page, hit update delete. I'm going to hit Control U. Let's take a look at that. Oh, hey. So, who can see the mistake I made? Well, this is the URL it's going to send us to.
There's no guess.
I forgot the word guestbook ID. I put in the question mark, but I didn't put in guestbook ID. And then what else do I need? Equals. Exactly. All right. Now, it should, keyword there, work. Let's go take a look. Update or delete. This one. I feel it. Whatever. There you go. Hey, it says it worked. Let's go check. Hey, it updated. Great. All right. Two other things we got to do with update, and then delete will go really quick, and then we'll be done. We'll just keep working through. Any questions on what we've got done so far with the form action? If you're making a more complicated web app or anything that requires that you're passing along multiple get values to, make sure that you have them here as well, and that you're passing them all along so they don't get dropped along the way. All right. Let's compare the sample solution to what we have here. When I hit update and delete versus when I hit update comment, what's one difference you see? Don't say blue and green. Let's go try another one. Let's do one that actually has like an actual comment. Wow, all these are gibberish. Hippos are crap. How dare you, Bob Smith, BS at bs.com. So again, what do you see on one side that's not on the other?
Oh, one that's not sticky.
Right. Oh yeah, sticky. That thing that we did on all those things. Yeah, you have to do it here. This is the one time where sticky is going to be different than all the other types of sticky you've done. You know, where like the forms are all pretty much straightforward. Can anyone take a guess as to why this one would be different? Because where is hippos are crap coming from? Where is that coming from? A form that we're making sticky? No, where is it pulling that from? The database. So we got to make something sticky via the database. It's not that hard. We just got to do one extra step here. Yeah, that's right. All right. So I'm going to steal some code from our index page, because basically what we need to do is we need to execute an SQL query. So I'm going to take a chunk here. We just need like a query, a result variable, and then we need a MySQL fetch array. We just need something to, actually I don't think, yeah, we do need the fetch array. I'm just going to steal that. We'll clean it up in a second. Go over to update. Yeah, we're just going to throw it like somewhere above the form in its own little section. We're like doing the logic at this point. We're just trying to figure out what we're trying to go look up in the database, like what is the current value of that comment, and then we'll put it in our form in a second. So, all right, let's get rid of, we don't need that. We don't need a loop. We're not looping through anything. We just needed to execute out the, execute. So, query. We don't need this. What's the query that we want to do? So if we're trying to pull back a specific SQL or like a specific comment, what should I be doing? It's a trick question. Don't type your SQL query straight there. Always start in PHPMyAdmin. But yes, you were on the right track. However, again, you always run into issues if you don't do it from here. All right. Am I selecting everything from guestbook? Well, not really. You could do that, but that's not really efficient. What's the only thing we care about? We go look at our fields here. We just want the new we just want the comment. So select comment from guestbook, and then a where clause to specify what we want. And what are we going to specify?
Guestbook ID.
Yeah, where guestbook ID is equal to, I'm just going to say 14 for now. We'll fix that later. We go run this. It gives us back just that, whatever that comment for that ID is. So now we go back over to our code, paste that in there. And now we need to change this 14 to a variable. What's the variable we're going to be using? Guestbook ID. Remember, that's why I said it's a good idea to move those out, because we're going to be using it actually in 3 places. So we're going to copy this. We're going to paste that in right there. Cool. That looks pretty good. Trying to think if I'm forgetting anything. Well, all right. So now we've set a query, we've executed that query, and we put those results of that query inside the row variable. What should I do now to get that to actually be sticky? Remember, we had something on like the home page, on their index page, where we would have something like the row value. So this isn't new. We've done like, from their index page, we're going to be putting row comments somewhere, but where am I going to be putting it? If I want to make this text area sticky, how do you make a text area box sticky? All right, so we got a couple different options there. Let's look at the source code here. So in case you don't remember, text area is one of the weird ones where it doesn't have a value tag. Instead, it's whatever's in between the opening text area tag and the closing text area tag. So it goes right there. So just paste that in. We're good, right? No. That was a very tired no, but it was a no nonetheless. We got to have PHP tags there. Echo. All right. Now we should be looking pretty good. Let's go take a look. Where's our new one? There we go. Go back to the home page, test it out. So in theory, this one should say, this one I feel Hey-oh, it's doing it. Awesome. All right. Let me think here. Cool. All right. One last thing we're going to add. Oops. One last thing we're going to add to our update page. So remember how I talked about, evil people and people putting in bad things in your code and stuff? And those 2 functions that we talked about very briefly several hours ago that no one remembers? Well, here's the part where we're going to be using those just to be on the safe side. So up here where you're defining your variables, this is where you're taking input from the user. So you should always sanitize that by using the trim function and the MySQL real escape function. So the first one is to just trim it. So you just put it in parentheses with trim. Do that for both. All right, that one was pretty easy. And the next one is to put all of that inside the MySQL real escape string one, which is MySQLi _ real escape string. Thank you for auto-completing it for me. Parentheses. Whatever the name of your database connection is, if you haven't changed it, ours was always DBC, comma, and then the rest of that nonsense. Close it. Do that, DBC, close. All right, now you've made it so your database will be a little bit more stable and less vulnerable to explosions and cool stuff. All right, I'm pretty sure we're done with the update page. Let's go check. Let's make sure it actually updates. So like, do that. Hey, it changed it. Let's change it again with more W's. Great. All right, the update button is now done. The update page is now working, and the update page is now sticky. Things to keep in mind for assignment 9 is so everything has to be validated and sticky. For leave a comment, that's going to be very similar to your assignment 4 and 5, where it's just you check to see if it's blank and then only submit to the database if everything is filled out. For update and delete, it's what we just did. It's going to be that database sticky. So that one's a little different. So make sure you're doing that one different to make sure you satisfy the everything sticky and validated comment. All right, last one. We're almost there. Last one, home stretch, is the delete button. So let's go take a look at the sample solution of what we did for delete. You technically could. Whoa, there we go. You'll notice my delete button keeps us on the same page. You could send them to a delete.php page, kind of like what we did last. That's how we did it before. We had a delete page. Well, as we learned with update.php, we don't need to do the guestbook ID anymore because we're going to get that from the URL. So this page is kind of dumb and redundant. Like we don't need anything here. You could have like great, it's been deleted. Or you could just do it all on the home page and be kind of cool. So like just do there and it just deletes it as on the home page. So that's what I'm going to do for this example. You're welcome to have it on a separate page as long as the user doesn't have to do anything other than just hit the delete button. Again, you can have like a confirmation message or like aesthetic stuff, that's fine. But like from a functionality standpoint, all they should have to do is click the link and it deletes it. So how do they do that? So we go back to our index page because that's where those links are going to be. We already created a nice little blank href tag here, but we need to update this with some get data. So very similar to the before, actually the point where I can steal like a good chunk of this. Let's do that. Exactly not what I wanted to do. Undo, undo. Except I got to change a couple things. What do I need to change in this link here? There's really only three things it could be. Update.php, guestbook ID, or row guestbook ID. Which one of those needs to change? Update. So again, you could do delete.php if you want. I'm going to be fancy and just send it to itself. Just keep it on the same index page and delete it from there. I am going to, just to be sure I don't want there to be confusion between them, I'm going to name this one delete ID. Again, you can name it whatever you want. You could keep it guestbook ID. I just think delete ID is a little bit more clear of this is the idea of what I want to delete. There is no ambiguity about what I'm about to do. So we go save. Again, that was just copying and pasting, so there shouldn't be too much of a difference there. But in theory, if we hover over all these, oh, it's not working. What did I mess up? If we go look at all these, oh god, those are really ugly. But like right here, you can see delete._id equals blank, and it didn't populate. So what did I mess up? Oh, okay. Yeah, that was a stupid mistake on my part. So my whole little rant there about yes, it's fine to set it to something else because I don't, I'm setting it to delete ID because I don't want there to be any ambiguity. But what's in my database? Guestbook ID. I can't change it there because that's pulling from the database. So this is fine. This was not fine. Save, re-upload. Oh, not that one. Refresh. Now, if we look at each one of these, awesome. It's sending us to the same page, but with delete ID equals 14 there. All right, great. Now what do I need to do? Well, we just need to have a little bit similar to what we did on the update page, where we just need to pull that value from the get data and then run an SQL query. In this case, well, a delete function. If I go ahead and look over at our delete function, we can kind of steal some of the code we had for it. Yeah, basically something like this. Yeah, we'll just kind of steal this code from delete.php, which we don't really need anymore, but it'll be a good start. Because there's no form anymore, so we don't need that request method equals post. I'm just going to throw this, I don't even know where would be a good spot for that. Where did I do it before? Did I have reasoning? I threw it at the bottom last time. I don't think there's any reason. I don't think it matters any much, but just to for sake of time, I'm gonna put it at the bottom here. All right. Don't need that. Don't need that. Just gonna again. So this is the bare minimum of what our SQL was doing. So we have to change a couple things here. So one, again, just to keep it, I don't want there to be any confusion with guestbook ID with my regular guestbook ID. So I'm going to change this to delete ID. And that's going to be equal to the post value for guestbook ID? No, this is the delete ID. That's what I just called it. That's what's going to be up in the URL. And is this fine? No, it's up in the URL, so it's get. What else should I do with this? Think hackers and bad guys and things. I should trim it. Okay, that was easy enough. What else should I do with it? That other really long thing, right? MySQLi real escape string. I'm just going to copy all that because why would I ever type that more than once in my life? Paste that in, and then add another set of parentheses to make sure I don't mess it up. All right, cool. So now we're basically going to get up in the URL. We're going to pull this get delete ID, and then we're going to run an execution query, a delete query. Delete from guestbook where guestbook ID equals, and should this stay the same? No, because I named it delete ID. So make sure they can be whatever you want as long as they match here. And then we'll and then we should have a nice little confirmation message. Again, I echoed out like a nice red bar if you want. So like here, if I go steal that Let's go steal that HTML. It was just an H3 apparently with a background of red. If I would have had more time, I would have pulled up like a Dalek or some like sci-fi reference and like, you have been deleted. We'll throw it in single quotation marks so I don't have to escape anything. You have been deleted. And we'll still just keep the same error message. In theory, this thing should never run, but let's see. I feel like I'm missing a step here. Oh, actually, yeah. We'll keep that, because that's going to run real quick. So now we've got it set up, so in theory, it should work. When I click that link, it should pull that get data from the URL, and then delete that record from the URL, or from the database. Oh, wait, when I first loaded the page, it says it broke. All right. Well, what if I hit delete? Well, that works. Like, you can tell, like, it's being deleted as we go through, like, these various ones. There's just a lot of gibberish here. But when I first went to the page, it says it is broke. Why is it saying that? Well, this code is running every time this page is loaded, no matter what. It's running every time, and it's basically executing a query that even if there's no get data, so then the query's broken. It doesn't have anything up in the URL. So the last step we need to do is kind of steal a code from up here. When they were whenever they were pulling values from the get data, what was something they always checked first? If it was set. Is there any data up there? So all this code we just did should be wrapped inside an if statement. If is set, get that, and then put it all in curly brackets. And what should this be changed to? What should this be changed to? Delete ID. Thank you. Save, upload. Naturally. What did I do? Or parentheses. All right, we don't have any error message at the beginning. If I delete this one now, it's gone. It's gone. You could, again, this is fine for now. You could get fancy and have it like redirect you back to like the home page or something to that effect. Actually, side note, you'll notice like when I delete these things, it doesn't actually go away until I go refresh the page. I think that's because I put the code at the bottom here. Just out of curiosity, if I move this up towards the top, I think that'll make it so, because then it'll catch that first before it actually gets to it. Let's see if I'm right on that. Heyo, it's working. So like that's nice. If you put it towards the top, what's nice is it'll delete the stuff before it renders it. All right, I think that's the end of the demo. Let's go through the assignment requirements to make sure there's no like surprises. First, any question on delete or update via the get method? If not, you got the class recording as a reference. I would not procrastinate this assignment. Even with the copying and pasting, this is probably still going to take as long as the previous assignment. So give yourself plenty of time. The SOAS tutors are great. Requirements. You need to satisfy all requirements for assignment 8. Okay, so if your assignment 8 is broken, you got to get that fixed first. You can look at the source code for the in-class that's on Canvas, but you need to get that working before you're able to do assignment 9. All fields must be sticky, required, and validated. So that means that the leave a comment form needs to be sticky and validated, so it won't execute to the database and won't enter in a blank record until everything's filled out. It needs to be sticky. Update needs to be sticky from the database, and there's nothing to sticky or validated for the delete button. So it's really just the leave a comment and update a comment for that. And you need to add in the following features: sorting, pagination. Sorting, you need to use 3 different sorting methods. You can choose whatever ones you want. You can do the same ones we did in class or change them, but you just need to have at least 3 different types. Pagination, delete and update via the get method. Last thing, Extra credit is to make it so the update and delete buttons do not leave the index page, but rather have the update and delete functionality built into the index page. So we already did half of that. You won't get extra credit for doing just half of that. That was, the example to show you. So like where we did the delete was on the same page. Figure out a way to do the update on the same page. So rather than have it pop to a second page, make it so like it pops up with like a text area box that's sticky that you can edit directly on the index. It's a fun challenge. It'll be very similar to what we did for the delete on the same page, but if you get that, you get 5 extra credit points. Any questions on assignment 9? All right, I've held you long enough. If you have questions, feel free to email them to me. Oh, one last thing for some of you, if I was delayed in answering your emails last week, so apparently my UWM my UWM password expired last Thursday, and they didn't tell me. I know that actually now that I said it out loud, I'm pretty sure there was a warning last class. Yeah, there was. I just remembered that now. Regardless, it shut off notifications to my phone, so I didn't get email notifications until like Monday. So I know I emailed people who were emailing me since then, but I do apologize. It won't happen again unless I do it again. Anyways, that's all I got. Have a good night. Have a good week. We'll see you guys next week.